Happy Sabbath again, everyone.
Sabbath.
Now for the kids, I have a confession to make. But they're smart, so I'm sure by now they've figured out that I'm not actually Paul. Yes, I am not Saul. I am not Saul. Is this... Okay, good. And, maybe that could be something that I would be embarrassed of, right? Coming clean that I'm not Paul, but you all knew the whole time. You played along with me, right? We were acting. But I do have some embarrassing stories. One that is coming to mind right now. In high school, I used to run a lot. Minimum 5 miles a day. I would do tournaments and things like that. And I joined a team at Forest Lake Academy where we would go to competitions and race. Well, one day, some back and forth talk between some friends of mine got going and competition was heated, right? I said, Ben, I'm going to beat your time. I said, no, you're not. I'm going to beat your time. And so my mind was not focused on the task at hand, right? And what ended up happening, we get to the race, and I'm not paying attention, and for about a mile, I'm running the wrong direction in a race. Now, of course, this wasn't a big race. These weren't, 5Ks down in Orlando where, you get 50,000 people out. It was probably about 20 of us. So I'm saying, man, I'm so fast. I can't even see anyone. Until I started seeing arrows going the wrong direction, and then, of course, my time was atrocious because I had to catch up. I had to run extra. And I was ashamed of that. I was embarrassed of that. I felt like I couldn't even come into the presence of my friends anymore because isn't this the guy who ran a mile the wrong direction? Are you not paying attention? I wasn't. And so the title of my message today is Unashamed. And what does that mean to be unashamed? And so we look in our Bibles. We're only going to go with one text today. Romans 1:16. Reading out of the NIV, it says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes, first to the Jew, and then to the Gentile." And so we think about Saul/Paul, and we think about his life, and we say, he had a lot to be embarrassed of. But right here, first chapter of Romans, Paul tells us, I am not ashamed. He might be ashamed of himself, but there is one thing that he is not ashamed of, and that is the gospel. Bow your heads with me, let's pray one more time. Our kind of Heavenly Father, Lord, right now, I ask that you come to this place, Lord, speak through me. The things that I have to say are nothing, Lord. I ask that your Spirit would come now and your words be my words. From here on out, I pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.
And so we say that Paul is not ashamed of the gospel. But the book of Romans and what VBS was all about, what the children were going through and learning this, part of this week and part of last week was about the church in Rome. And so, as was seen in the skit earlier, a couple minutes ago, it wasn't always the nicest place to be if you were a Christian, Rome. Because they didn't always like people speaking about Jesus because they thought, and to get really technical, they thought that people following Jesus meant that instead of following their emperor, the one who was politically in charge, they thought that it was an uprising, something to overthrow the government, right? And so for simply mentioning Jesus, for talking about Jesus, you could be thrown in prison. And so I don't have it on now, but this week, I portrayed Paul while he was under house arrest for doing just that. I had a chain that was linked to the pastor, who was my guard, and so I spent a lot of time with him. of God, Paul was still able to write his letters.
Amen.
You think about it. If he's in prison for speaking about Jesus, you think the last thing a guard would let him do is write letters. But we have so many letters while Paul is under house arrest. And they are a blessing to us today. They speak of strength. They speak of bravery. And right here, we see that Paul is unashamed. Well, let's go back and let's talk about who Paul was. Paul started out as a teacher of the law, the one who made religious laws for all the Jews, because Paul was a Jew. And when Christianity happened, he was right there. When it first started, he was there, part of the people persecuting Christians. Paul did not enjoy feeling like their values were being undermined and the law was being undermined. There was this new thing called grace that people did not take into account. And so Paul is angry. We learn about a man named Stephen, the first Christian martyr. And as the members of the council who created religious laws, the ones who were supposed to know Jesus better than anyone else, were breaking the commandments by murdering Stephen. Paul was there. Saul, at the time, was there. The Bible says that they threw their coats at his feet. Paul was the one, who wasn't taking part in murdering Stephen, but was there and was a part. And sometimes, you will agree with me, you are just as guilty if you say nothing than if you participate. Yes? And so I like to get in the minds of people when I read about them, when I preach about people. And so I see Paul. The fact that he didn't get involved might mean that in some level, he might have been under conviction. Because in the chapters before, we see that Stephen, in front of everyone, is making a statement saying, this is why I believe in Jesus. This is why you are wrong. And the Bible says that the members were so angry, they gnashed their teeth and they quite literally lunged at him. At this point, there's no more straight thinking. While everybody was lunging at him, trying to tear Stephen apart, Paul, Saul, is standing on the outside and he's looking. Stephen has just gone through Jesus. He's gone through what grace means. And Paul is just watching. And sometimes when we come under conviction of something, but we're not ready to make the decision to follow that conviction, we fight it. And sometimes we fight it by going to the far opposite side of where we were before. And so we see that Paul becomes one of the most feared men in the time. Christians feared the name Saul. If they knew Saul was coming to Brevard County, Christians would go to Orlando, they'd go to Kissimmee, they'd go somewhere else. But they would not be in the same place as Saul. And so we see Paul now is traveling to Damascus to do what he does best. He is going to destroy all evidence of Christians in Damascus. He's going to separate families, kill fathers, kill mothers. Because he thinks in his heart that he is doing the will of God. How sad it can be to be convicted in the wrong way. And as he's on the road, the Bible says that a light came and flashed, and he falls off of his horse, and his guards were afraid because they could hear a voice, but they couldn't see him. And this voice speaks out to Paul and says, or Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Now mind you, while Paul's on the floor, he's probably very confused. He's just persecuting you, I'm helping you. Well, we see that Paul remains blind for a couple days. He meets a Christian, and in that time period, being under a new conviction, Paul is taught everything he knows. Everything he thought he knew was wrong, and now he's mixing all the good together, and he switches his name to Paul. And we see in the Bible that a lot of people that God has called to do great things get their name changed. And Paul is no exception. It's easy to say that maybe Paul is one of the greatest evangelists of all time. But now Paul is facing a problem now, because it's not like we have the internet today and Facebook and Twitter today where all the Christians can say, by the way, Paul is cool now. So Paul is stuck in a place where he is embarrassed anywhere he goes. If he goes back to his old brethren, he is ashamed because they no longer hold the same values as him. And quite fundamentally, they disagree with him. Now he is somebody that they want to kill, but now if he goes to the Christians, they run away. And he's trying to explain, no way, but I'm good. I'm a good person now. Oh, I'm sure you are. Yeah. Well, what is Paul to do? He preaches the word. He preaches what he is convicted of, what his heart says. And he does that. He does what the Lord says, and the Lord takes care of the rest. We see now the first chapter of Romans, verse 16. I will read it again. For I am not ashamed of the gospel. And gospel in the Greek is another word for good news. How could you be ashamed of good news? If my parents say to me, Ben, I know you've always wanted to travel to Europe. Well, we just happen to have free airfare, free hotels, free tourism guides, all for you. Am I going to be embarrassed of that? Nah, you know what, I'm good. When you have good news, there's no way that you can be ashamed of that. You want to tell everybody. And so Paul said, I am not ashamed of the good news of the gospel. Paul might be ashamed of everything else he's done. But of the good news of Jesus Christ, of salvation, of grace, he cannot be ashamed. Why? It says, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes. Now remember who Paul was originally. Teacher of the law, created laws, law, and then put this law on the Jewish people, where we see that God only gave us 10 commandments, but with the Jews there was 1,000 or so, where if you on the Sabbath had to go to the bathroom, but you've already walked your designated 50 steps, well, that's just too bad. There's nowhere, that's not in the Bible. They made that up. That's something to be ashamed of. The good news of Jesus Christ is not something to be ashamed of at all. And mind you now, Paul, his old self, believes a lot in salvation by works. The law saves you. But here he's saying this is good news because it's the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes. That's still good news for us today.
Amen.
For the kids who came through VBS, we learned that God's love is always with us. We learned that God's love is worth sharing because it is perfect, beautiful, good news. Now, I don't know where everyone's life is at right now. I'm the intern. I'm not here for long. I haven't been here for long. But I do know about this good news. And the reason I'm here is because I want to tell you that no matter where you are, no matter what you've done, whether you're old, whether you're young, whether you're confused, in debt, in trouble, it is the power of God that saves you.
Amen.
And for the kids, this is amazing. You might be anywhere from 4 to 12 years old. You might not fully understand everything that God has to offer, but He died for you.
Amen.
And He loves you. We had 2 baptisms today. Now I know that heaven is going wild right now. They're having a great time up there because 2 more people were added into fellowship with Jesus Christ.
Amen.
This is good news.
Amen.
This is living out the gospel. And the great thing is, through baptism, we become changed. And now, we think, can God and His love, I understand, man, that it's a gift. I understand it's good news, but I'm too messed up. There's no way that I can be changed by that. I have to give you again the example of Paul. Paul was about as bad as they come. Saul was about as bad as they come. But Paul, quite literally, new name, new creation, through the power of Jesus, the power of the gospel. It says it right here. It's the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes. So I'm here to tell you again that if you believe in Jesus and you believe in the power that Jesus has, you will be changed.
Amen.
Amen.
Some of you in here have been changed. You're living, walking, breathing testimonies that God has amazing, changing power.
Amen.
And so, to wrap this up, to wrap up VBS, we learned about Paul. We learned about God's love. We learned that we do not need to be ashamed of who we are as Christians, because we follow a powerful God.
Yes.
A God who can change the heart of anyone if you let Him. And the good news, the gospel, is meant to be shared. And so, the gospel being shared doesn't just end with VBS. It doesn't just end with church. We're Christians. God has chosen us and He has placed us strategically all over the world. So today, this Sabbath day, if you would like to join with Jesus, I ask you to stand and I want to pray for you. Because God can do amazing things through you, through unlikely people like us. God can do amazing things. So you might say, Ben, I don't even know where to start. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know what to do. Well, in joining me and standing with me, I'm going to pray that God puts someone in your life this week. You might not even know. You might not even know that this is the person. But I'm going to pray that God will send you a divine appointment. That you can share the good news with them. That if they're down and out, you can tell them God can help you and God will change you.
Amen.
Let's bow our heads. Our kind of Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you so much for the good news of the gospel, the salvation that we have in you. Lord, we do not deserve this. And it baffles our minds, Lord, when we think about all the things we've done, Lord. And we put ourselves in the shoes of Paul. Paul did not deserve to be an instrument. He did not deserve to be used. Lord, but you called him. And Lord, if you called him, you can call us too.
Amen.
Lord, today I ask that all those standing, everyone here under the sound of my voice, Lord, that you would use them. Lord, they might not even realize that it's happening. But God, the way you are, I pray that you would send people into their lives. Someone specific, you know best. Someone who you know needs to hear good news from them. God, we don't want to be an idle church. The church in Rome was oppressed, but look at what they did. God, we live in a free country, Lord. We are not oppressed. Imagine, Lord, with us, the good we could do. I know you see it. Lord, my prayer today is that we would be those people. Lord, light a fire in our lives right now. That when we leave here, we are new creations in you, Lord. People who have a burden to tell everyone the good news. Lord, as I send everyone out on their journey this week, Lord, it's not going to be easy. Lord, the second we send people out, the devil sends his angels to attack. But God, I know you are more powerful than the devil.
Yes.
Way more powerful than the devil. Doesn't even compare. So Lord, I ask that just as a show of power, you would send angels to be with us. Each and every one of us. Send more than one, Lord, that we could do your good work.
Amen.
That we could do your good work unattacked. And that we might do it as effective as we possibly can. I pray in your name. Amen.
Amen.